that he told me. I wished he would hold me a little more than he did, but he taught me my culture and how to live positive. I never wanna shame the blood in my veins and bring pain to my sweet grandfather.
Culture isn't what we say, it's what we live. As Marcus Collins defines it, culture is a social operating system. The invisible code that governs who we are, how we see the world, and what people like us do, especially under pressure. Now, long before strategy decks, board meetings, brand frameworks, or AI models, culture was already doing the work. And today, that work has never been more consequential. As technology accelerates, quietly assisting our thinking and widening the reach of our interactions, it offers extraordinary possibilities. But meaning doesn't scale automatically. When speed outruns understanding, marketing can lose its cultural footing, because tools may help us speak to more people around the world through more channels, but it is culture ultimately that helps us to say something that matters, shaping judgment, creativity, trust, and the human connection audience still feel when something truly resonates. And that tension sits at the heart of this episode. Welcome to The Great Indoors, continuing season 11, where we explore what remains human in an increasingly optimized, automated world, where we choose depth over noise, meaning over metrics, and lived experience over abstraction. I'm your host, as ever, Matthew Roberts, and as always, I'm joined by my producer, the one and only Larissa Yee, the quiet force keeping this conversation grounded, intentional, and unmistakably human. Now, today's guest is a previous guest from season 9, and he's spent his career helping organizations understand culture, not as a buzzword, but as infrastructure. So Marcus Collins returns to the show after a standout appearance. As I mentioned last year, a year ago, we didn't finish half the things we planned to talk about. We were engrossed in this incredible conversation, and we knew that when season 11 rolled around, we'd have to bring Marcus back to finish what we started. But also, a lot has happened in the last 12 months, and I think it's going to be fascinating. Now, Marcus, for those of you who don't know him, is a marketing professor at the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business. He's a cultural strategist whose work has shaped some of the world's most influential people and brands, from Beyonce to Nike to Apple to McDonald's. He is the author of For the Culture. You know, in this conversation, we're going to go further than ever before, arguing that the most powerful marketing doesn't interrupt culture, it participates in it. And that the greatest constraint on innovation today isn't talent or technology, but internal culture. I believe that's going to be the premise of his upcoming new publication. And that in our rush to automate, we must be careful not to outsource the very things that make us human. So today, we explore culture as a living system, a living creature, and why meaning still matters in an age of optimization. So, this is it. This is The Great Indoors. I want to welcome Marcus Collins. Let's begin. So welcome back to The Great Indoors, season 11. Wow, and it's a pleasure to welcome our next guest on today. He's been on the podcast before in season 9, and that's why we had to have him back, because we just had so much still to talk about. So I'd like to welcome back to The Great Indoors, Mr. Marcus Collins. Marcus, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. Thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
And I can't believe it's been over 12 months since we last spoke. It's like a time lapse.
I think about time. It feels like it was just yesterday, but also feels like it's been forever.
And here's the other thing. It feels just like yesterday, but it feels like we have a lot to talk about in the last 12 months. A lot to talk about. And so first of all, obviously, we're approaching Christmas. And I'm thinking about this now. We should have done this with a glass of sherry and a mince pie. If my wife saw me drinking at this time of the day, I'd probably be in trouble. So we'll stick to the water. So what have you been up to in the last 12 months?
I've been preaching the gospel, sort of evangelizing the ideas from my book For the Culture that came out 2.5 years ago, which feels like it's unbelievable how time has just flown by since I put the book in the world. But I've been experiencing a lot of new epiphanies that have changed the way I think about my work and work more broadly. And out of that has birthed a new book that I am finishing up the manuscript on as we record this. I launch a new podcast next month that's on the exact same topic. So I'd say that the last year has been a widening of the aperture to have me see the world a bit differently and in some cases create some new lenses by which the world manifests itself.
Cool. Now, 12 months ago, we talked about culture as a significant tool in marketing and segmentation and identification. And we talked about some great examples from McDonald's and some of your other past experiences. And it was a really wonderful conversation. And when I wrote about that, when we had that discussion, what came across, I was thinking about culture wars and cultural appropriation and all these different things. But what is it that you've expanded in your forthcoming new book that's in the manuscript, Marcus? I'm fascinated to know what's the epiphany that you've had since our last conversation.
The thing that got my attention most over the last year and a half now, actually, is that I'm working with all these companies, grateful to work with so many great companies across the globe, helping them operationalize the thinking from my book For the Culture into their work. And what I realized is that their impediment, their challenge, had very little to do with their talent, because they had brilliant people, really, really skillful people there. Very little to do with ideas, very little to do with creativity, very, very little to do with technology, but everything to do with their internal culture. That is to say that their internal operating system was prohibiting them from fully engaging in the external operating system that we call consumer culture. And it was sort of like seeing the number 23. You see it once and you can't stop seeing it. I just saw it over and over and over again, that the backstage, if you will, of the company's performance is what inhibits or empowers its front stage. Yet for marketers in particular, we spend so much time thinking about the front stage. But what I've learned is that you can have the best actors with the best stage play, the best costumery, and the best director. But if the backstage isn't operating at its highest fidelity possible, then the production will suffer. And that's been the biggest learning I've observed over the last 18 months.
So the internal culture that exists and manifests itself differently across different organizations, maybe geographically, maybe nationally, maybe in the segment they serve, is inhibiting them to take advantage of, I wouldn't say exploiting, but harnessing consumer culture when they do their marketing.
Yeah, it's prohibiting them from realizing the best version of themselves. It's prohibiting them from taking a really good idea and put it in the market to engage with people through a cultural lens. And what I found is that it doesn't matter, like, you can have every single bit of insight about a consumer, a fan base, a community, a group of people. But if your organization doesn't have the wherewithal to do something about it, to engage in it in a meaningful way, none of it would ever work. I mean, you think about the work with McDonald's. The most powerful thing there wasn't just the insights that came out of it, out of that research. It was the organization's ability to change. It was the organization's ability to change the way it saw the world as an organization and ultimately the way that it behaved in the world. And that difference, what may seem sort of obvious on the surface, that difference made all the difference between the companies that were successful, that were thriving, and the ones that were struggling and tripling over in their own feet.
So, and obviously without naming an example of a particular company where you saw these behaviors, how would you, rather than, obviously you said that the the willingness of a company to change in order to adopt their marketing to take advantage of identifying that cultural aspect. What is it you saw in those companies that prevented them from being able to change? Was it just, this is how we do things? Was it a fear? Was it a lack of understanding? Was it, well, we've been doing this for 200 years, so we're not possibly going to start with all of that kind of... What was the trend you saw in the behaviors from those organizations?
Yes, 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 and yes. It's sort of their prior and previous success had become their biggest impediment, that they had been successful doing something one way for so long that when they found themselves in turbulence, they found themselves having to navigate change, they didn't have the muscle memory to do it. And the truth of the matter is that they've been doing things for so long that they actually forgot the provocations and the insights that actually had them do that in that way in the first place. You know, it's sort of like just how we do things around here, which is ironic because if you ask most people to define organizational culture, that's how they defined it, how we do things around here. But the truth of the matter is, like, at least what I've learned from the literature review is that is only a fraction of what organizational culture is. And this greater sort of vision of culture, widening the aperture, like removing the myopia, has been so vivid in its expression that I had to write a book about it.
So if a company's culture is to revert to what was successful in a bygone era and not really be able to adapt and change to the environment, is there hope for them? Is there a solution, or are we like, okay? And how would you convince? What have you experienced that moves them out of that?
I mean, if nothing else, I am a hopeless optimist. But the literature will also support this, in that, of course, there's hope. There are ways of changing. There's ways of navigating organizational transformation. But it starts with understanding who you are as an organization. And that's actually the hardest part. And this is where I found congruence between consumer culture and organizational culture. It's all culture. Culture is the governing operating system of humanity. It's a social operating system that demarcates who we are and govern what people like us do. So we talk about culture in the context of, ethnicity. We're talking about a social operating system for people who identify by a similar heritage. We talk about culture in the context of religion. We're talking about a group of people who identify by a social operating system associated with their faith. The same thing goes with organizational culture. We're talking about a group of people who abide by a social operating system based on where they work, where they engage in the collective production of work. And if that be the case, then no wonder those things would be consistent. And just like marketers have a hard time understanding sort of what the brand believes, they often have a hard time understanding what the company believes. And therefore, making changes becomes quite the challenge.
I just had spectacular deja vu when you were saying that, Marcus. Tell me you've put that out on social media, that last quote, somewhere recently, or maybe someone did put some sherry in my water. I don't know. That was really no.
Something of that sort. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's really, really amazing. Now, when we spoke a year ago, we were talking a lot about AI and how AI, and I remember the examples you were using of music. You were a keen musician, and you used the example of electric drum machines and how that enabled people to come in. It basically democratized the ability for people to produce good music. Now, nothing has moved faster in the history of technology than AI has done since we last spoke, right? It is phenomenal. How has the last 12 months played into what you see happening culturally? I'll give you some examples of some things I've seen, But I mean, well, I tell you what I've seen, and I was telling, I was speaking to Larissa about it last night. But what we came to in season when we had you on in that season was the notion of offloading and digitizing human storytelling and cognitive thought. So it was the last bastion, right? So we digitalized music was an example. We digitalized photography. We digitalized communication. We digitalized financial transactions. We digitalized our television. We digitalized everything. And now we're at this last frontier where we're digitalizing our cognitive thought, right? We're digitalizing our own authenticity. We can offload all of that to generative AI, and that will be able to tell our stories and do everything for us. And we had that discussion, and it was a question: is this going to be good for humanity? Is this the last bastion of humanity? You know, what's this? And I came to the conclusion that it was going to be good and it was going to be great, and the democratization. But what I have seen recently, and I've seen it on social media, is this homogeneity, particularly on LinkedIn, of posts from all aspects of every organization. So what's happening is a social media agency that works for a company will say, okay, I'll take care of your social media. They run it through an LLM, and everything now has become homogenous. So it'll be someone from a marketing department said, and they all start like this. I'm probably going to offend so many people in my company right now, but it is an observation I've made. They all start with, just catching my breath after a wonderful event in New York City with XYZ, and we learned this, and we saw this, and I was inspired by this, and here's some photographs, and that's it. And then at first you think that's a great post. It's written beautifully. It captures the essence of the event. There's nothing wrong with it. But then the next post is pretty much the same. And the names have changed and the place has changed and the photography is different, but the structure and the essence are the same. And my LinkedIn is flooded with this, flooded. So that authenticity in a very short form storytelling platform like LinkedIn has gone. And so the LinkedIn posts I'm attracted to and the ones I read and engage with are the ones that have that differential, that are a little bit saying something different, and it may be a little bit rough and ready, and the English might not be quite as polished. But do you see what I mean? I'm gravitating away. Do you see? And that's an observation that's bugging me.
Well, I mean, I think your observation is spot on. It's no surprise that Merriam-Webster coined or awarded slop as the word of the year, because that is AI slop. It's indistinguishable one from the other. It's interesting because in many ways it's sort of mimetic in its stature. That is, it's easily becomes derivative work that you just kind of plug in your specifics, or like Mad Lib, and like there is your post. But the difference between those kind of posts and memes is that memes are culturally mediated. They have meaning, and that meaning is being negotiated by humanity. And this is where I continue to be optimistic. Again, I am a helpless optimistic, but I continue to be optimistic because the human condition will always be the most powerful part. So even when you think about this idea of like outsourcing the cognitive part of what we do, I would argue, yes, totally. But it's only a portion of the cognitive. It is the automated thinking that we do, right? The thinking without thinking, system one thinking, as Daniel Kahneman would put it. There's a ton of redundancy or repetition, right? It's not entirely new, but it sort of feels like what's familiar. And there's some benefit to that. But what does the human condition gravitate towards? Novelty. We like things that feel new and familiar, right? It was the phrase Maya, most improved yet acceptable. And it's humanity that's able to sort of gauge that. I remember clients will even ask, like, how do you know when the ideas wore out? Like, how do you know we had to move on to the next campaign? It's like, you just got to feel it. You got to be in it. And it's hard to capture that in an LLM. It's hard to capture that in an AI bot. So while we are offsetting some of the cognitive load to AI. We did the same thing with the internet. This is more pervasive for sure. Therefore, the implications are far greater. But I put my money on humanity. I believe in us. I believe in the human condition and its ability to zag to the zig. At least every horror movie has told us that like humanity will always win in the end.
No, I believe that as well. And I think when I use that LinkedIn example, and maybe there's a cultural aspect to that in that normally social media algorithms will reward the content that is authentic, that is quirky, that is desirable. So the more likes and hits and engagement, the algorithms push that piece of content more. So it rewards the good stuff.
But that's only that's retroactively. It's not proactively doing it. Like the algorithm that see it and goes, "Hey, this is really, really novel. We're going to give this more love." It's just responding to how people respond. It's the fact that the content's able to interact or emote within people that then the technology responds, which I think is the perfect metaphor for the world that we live in. The algorithms are reactive. The LLMs are reactive based on what is, not what will be. Now, when I think about work today relative to the last 12 months and the role technology has played in it, what I find so disheartening is sort of the lack of humanity in it all. Like where you can erase 15,000 jobs in a day as if these people don't mean anything. It's sort of the sheer sort of incivility of it all. And what I go back to is that it's not the technology's doing it. Like AI didn't take your job. AI didn't fire you. It's the way your organization perceived you and your labor and the significance of you and your labor that they were able to just sort of flippantly let you go. That to me, that's the part that worries me is when humans forget our humanity. That's when things go awry.
Yeah. And I think, and we talked about it a year ago, AI should be enabling a new wave of creativity, a new democratization, allowing people to come in and create music and videos and images and poetry by using those tools. And that's beautiful for humanity. But then when we look at it economically, well, what's AI going to do? It's going to take your jobs, guys. And that's the dichotomy, isn't it? Now, of course, the economic argument is that then people will repurpose their efforts into something somewhere else and another area will grow, and that's the economic cycle. But again, there is this continual ethical discussion that we're embroiled in pretty much every day right now. But where are you seeing how AI is either impairing or improving or polarizing culture at all? Are you seeing any implications of that right now? I know I use my LinkedIn example, which is almost like it's like a pet peeve example.
The thing that where I see it impairing humanity is the fact that we don't know what's real. It's hard for us to really tell what's real. I mean, you probably seen that video of Will Smith a few years ago using AI to show him eating spaghetti and it looked ridiculous. You see it today and it looks indistinguishable from him eating right now. So
it's available to you right now with Sora.
Exactly. And Nano, Google's technology, like that is so unbelievably terrifying for me, at least, because I had to look, and I thought myself being pretty digitally savvy and being able to spot fakes. But if it's not like terribly hyperbolic, I have to look in the comments to see someone go, "It's AI." Look at you squint your eyes and look at the corner. You see that there's a different color hue there and there. And I go, dude, like I would have caught that.
No, exactly.
Right? And I certainly, like, my 87-year-old mother wouldn't have caught that. And I think that that part really, really concerns me, because if we can't tell what's real and what's fake, then we lose all sense of trust. I like the construct. It says that trust is the mechanism that absorbs uncertainty. And without it, man, we're in a complete free-for-all. And I think that the way we tend to be going, especially in a world that's as polarized as it is politically today, it's only pouring gasoline on a fire to which we don't have the tools to put out if it gets too out of control.
I have some humorous examples at my own detriment of where my teenage daughters have been using Sora to distribute videos of me dressing up in women's clothes, putting makeup on, and things of this nature. And then
share them.
And then I did share them with my work corporate group chat. But the problem there was Sora is only available in North America. So for everybody else in Europe, they were like, why is Matt sharing these things? But there's something he needs to tell us. And of course, this is, but the humor aside, and even my football club, Liverpool Football Club, was getting into trouble recently. The manager was doing a bad job. It looked like he was going to lose his job. So I went on Sora and created a video of me being appointed as the next Liverpool manager. Like, that would be the dream. I put it on social media, and I swear 5 people thought it was real and sent me emails congratulating me on my appointment as the new Liverpool head coach. You can see how potential misuse can come in, and we laugh at those things. But you're right, in a politically polarized world, this is where this stuff needs regulation, whether it's a stamp, whether it's a watermark, whether it's something that picks up and flags it, right, that this is AI generated. This is where regulation needs to step in.
Yeah, we leave ourselves susceptible to too many bad actors. And the things are just they're so polarized that I can't even rely on sort of civility to win the day when it comes to these things. So that part to me is troubling. The other part that concerns me is muscle atrophy. That will rely on these tools to do all our thinking. We tend to stop thinking. My wife teased me the other day. Every time, even we live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, of course, because I teach in Michigan, University of Michigan. But anytime I get in the car, wherever I'm going, I put in the GPS, I put in Waze where I'm going. My wife goes, "Do you know how to get home? Why are you putting this in?" And I go, "Well, there might be an easier way. There might be a faster way. I don't know what the traffic is." Like, I am so reliant on it just to get home. And I don't even realize that I'm doing it, that I still do it. It's just become such a part of my muscle memory, to the point that, like, I remember last week, and I was like, oh man, I was like, almost had like a little bit of paralysis. Like, I was like, I don't know which way to go. I think so many ways. Which way should I go? And this is something, like, to your point, it's humorous on the surface, but when it comes to like really important things, we see people who are asking ChatGPT about like real life things. Like, should I call the police? Should I call 911? Someone's beating at my door right now. What should I do? And you look at those people and go, you're an idiot. Of course, call 911. But just like me, I know how to get home, but I still was like, what's the bell? What should I do here? That's kind of wild.
You look at any human innovation in civilization, and there's been a physical atrophy of some human quality based on that innovation. So the human memory diminished massively when mankind started writing, right? The human jawbone and stomach enzymes changed when man started cooking with fire, right? People can't find their way around now because they're so reliant on GPS. And if we're offloading all our thinking, then that ability will atrophy. But then you have to think to yourself, so what happens with the human brain capacity, particularly if we do cognitive offload of basic stuff, like rudimentary things, does that open other parts of our brain that allow us to do even more incredible things? Or do we become jellyheads in front of Netflix for the rest of our lives? I mean, that's the question, isn't it?
I mean, that would be the ideal scenario, that we free ourselves up to be more abstract thinkers and really, really put some rigor against how we think about the world and navigate the world and these complex ideas. But you know what? That has been the imagination of technology for centuries. that all this technology is going to free us up to have more leisure time, free us up to do the things that matter most, free us up to
make
do
us happier.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Exactly. We work harder than ever. Yeah.
Because our culture is not wired for that. That's not what we value. Like any downtime should be allocated to something. If not, you aren't doing it, depending on how you see the world and where you are in the world. So it always, all roads lead back to culture, for me at least.
Yeah,
because
they do. Yeah.
It's the way that we translate the world around us. And these technologies, these tools, they're cultural artifacts. They're cultural production, right? Just like we see tools that archaeologists are able to achieve or retrieve through their digs, they tell us something about what people value then. I write about this in my book last year for the culture, that like years from now, centuries from now, researchers are going to look at photos of us as adolescents, particularly here in the United States, and they're going to be like, yo, these people were so vain that they were putting metal in their mouths to achieve some oral aesthetic. Like these people were willing to pull their jaws and grab their teeth and stretch it across their face because that's how vain these people were. Like our tools say something about us. And the fact that we have these godlike tools at our disposal and we're using them to offset the parts of us that make us human, good Lord, that's a frightening situation.
It is. It is frightening. I listened to a podcast this morning, and what I didn't realize, and I think a lot of us may not know, is that after we spoke a year ago, China got into the whole AI race and released DeepSeek. We went to Barcelona, we talked about it with a lot of people. And then, obviously, Gemini's catching up and ChatGPT and all the others. But then I saw a podcast today and it was like, well, where's China in all of this now? They said, well, China went a different route. So whilst North America was focusing on the large language models, China went down the robotic model. So they're taking those LLMs and putting them in androids. And they had an android the other day that ran a half marathon whilst reciting Shakespeare or something like crazy. So they've gone a different route on this. And it's like, I was watching it thinking, OMG, we're so focused on these LLMs and predictive text models. And when those things converge, we're then going to be, we're talking about our thinking being digitalized and offloaded, but then your physical acts, basic physical things you need to do in a day, whether it's making a cup of coffee, cup of tea, getting in your car, that'll be digitalized. Then what happens? I mean,
we're cooked. That's what happens. I mean, this is kind of where I go back to. The technology will continue to evolve and become more pervasive and find itself rooted and planted in our lives. And we'll have to negotiate and reckon with that for sure. But the technology will only do what it has always been meant to do, and that's to extend human behavior. Marshall McLuhan said the technology is more extension of human behavior. Glass extension of the eyes, clothes extension of the skin, camera extension of the memory, wheel extension of the foot, right? These things are all extensions of who we are. And when I look at the way in which we as a society have leveraged the technologies, it says more about us than it does about the technology. The fact that we wipe tens of thousands of people off the org chart like that says something to me about how we view human labor. When we say, hey, we have all this technology to excavate all the thinking and data and knowledge information across the world, but let's make more porn.
Yeah.
It says something about who we are more than the technology itself.
All the greatest technology that's been deployed in the internet was to just sell more stuff to people. You think about that, right? That's everything was just, well, this is great, but what does it do? Well, it allows us to sell more things to more people, right? But I think my conclusion on the end of the last season, and we talk about digitalizing everything, you cannot digitalize this. You cannot digitalize the conversation that we're having right now and outsource or offload that to somebody else authentically, right? And I think that, to me, gives me hope in humanity. And I think also the appreciation that you have for the physical is accentuated by too much digital. And I use this example, and it's of my daughter Matilda, she's an actress. She did theatre earlier on this year after we'd spoken, and her show starts tomorrow night over Christmas in theatre here in Toronto. But here was the thing, and I wrote about this that blew my mind. In the olden days, 50, 60 years ago, not even that far ago, maybe even less, 30 years ago, people would go to the theatre and watch a live show, the human interaction, the human live spectacle, and it would release all the oxytocins and dopamine. And then today, there's no disputing it. Kids are spending way too much time in the digital world. We know that Dr. Anna Lembke writes about the dopamine deficiency syndrome. We see it. It's prevalent everywhere. Now, my daughter did this show, Matilda, in the theatre. Lots of young kids there. I have never seen so much joy, so much happiness in that group, that demographic of people ever in my life. Because they don't see it as often as maybe we would have seen that kind of thing when we were kids. They go into a live show, they have to switch their devices off, they witness the human connection in a congregation, in an audience, the shared cultural identities in it all. I have never felt so uplifted or seen so much joy before in that group. And it was an epiphany for me, that thing.
It just hits different. When you do it with people, it just hits different, right? Driving out of town sucks when you're by yourself, but a road trip, it just hits different. I've seen Boys to Men live maybe 23 times, 24 times. I've seen them live, right? If you look at my Spotify Wrapped, I am in there 0.06%. Like I'm like 0.6% tile. Like I'm like way huge Boys to Men fan. Every time I've seen them, it has been different. And the thing is, I even know the routines, because a lot of the routines are the same ones, especially from Motown Philly, same ones they were when I was in high school. I know the routines. I even know the runs that they're going to do every now and again. They may throw a new one in there, but I know the run they're going to do. I know the sequence of song. Like I know it, but it just hits different when you're in the moment, right? Aristotle said it best. We are social animals by nature, and our neurochemistry, the oxytocins, they are fired up when we're with people, right? The dopamine hits, the serotonin releases, right? The cortisol drop. These things all happen when we are with people. And as great as the zeros and ones are, they'll never replace that. I mean, let's put it this way. There are national associations of bloggers who spend their time online writing, who have national conferences in person. Like even they get it, right? So it's as great and prolific and pervasive as the technology will be, and that is awesome. It'll always be about us. So the future of work, in my view, is humanity, not AI.
I agree. And I looked into it. Scientifically, that conclusion or that thing I witnessed. And I think it was Dr. Anna Lembke or one of the others who'd proven that the greatest antithesis to dopamine deficiency, the imbalance caused by digital overload, was music, but music shared in an audience. That is the peak, to your point, Marcus, the peak antidote to the digital overload. So I think that's fascinating. And then you see, so that gives you hope in humanity. It might also explain why concert tickets are so bloody expensive these days. And you can't get tickets for anything unless you're willing to put down $500. And when you have 3 teenage daughters, that's a problem, right? And they want to go and see.
That's a problem. But the thing about music these days, though, is that how often is the microphone on? Now, that's the problem. Like, you spend an arm and a leg to go see your children's favorite artist or your favorite artist, and you go and they're not doing the thing. And you go, what? Man, you feel robbed. You feel robbed by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that gives me hope, we talked about this a year ago, is comedy, live comedy. I love live comedy, stand-up. I watched the Eddie Murphy Netflix. I know you said both of us had that shared love of Delirious growing up, right? And I watched the Eddie Murphy, and I was just laughing all the way through. And my wife didn't really understand it. She was like, I don't get why you're laughing so much. I was like, this is hysterical. But again, it comes from that shared experience of Delirious growing up and Raw and all of those things. But I find myself now watching a lot of stand-up comedy, and that authentic human interpretation of our deficiencies or observational humor, that can't be replaced by...
Like, we talked about this when we were together last time, when AI music productions are in the world, they're all very homogenous, just like those LinkedIn posts you saw. They all sort of sound the same. They feel the same. But the music that transcends the category or transcends a moment in time, they're all the things that sort of played with the orthodoxy. They subvert the orthodoxy, right? And LLMs aren't designed to do that. And therefore, they go like, I don't know what to do with this ultimately. So the way I see it is that when it comes to the work that we do, it's having these different people from different walks of life who are looking at a solution, look at a problem through different lenses, and therefore we get these new perspectives that we normally wouldn't get otherwise. That's humanity facilitated. And the technology helps us do that better, but it's us. It's us that does it.
So I think we can definitely conclude this section that we're both optimistic, positive about the power of humanity prevailing in a homogenous monoculture, right? That's it's going to be that human authenticity that wins through at the end of the day.
Yes, but I'm concerned about humanity giving up our humanity, giving up what makes us human. That's going to be the wound that we experience will be self-inflicted. I don't think this is like the Terminator where Skynet is going to turn on us. I don't believe that so much. I think it's going to be, if we fall by the sword, it'll be our own.
And when you've been speaking with different companies, looking at their cultural inhibitions, there is in our company a culture of, we call it AI fitness. They want everybody to be AI fit. Use it wisely, improve your productivity. Have you come across a company that is AI, I don't want to say AI obese. I was thinking it's the opposite of fit, but just AI resistant or uncertain, or they've overdone it. They've got the balance wrong, and it's impairing their marketing efforts.
In some way, I would say the institution of higher education is somewhat, maybe not obese, but obtuse when it comes to AI. And not because the institution as a whole, higher education, doesn't see the value in AI. I think that there is an overemphasis on the wrong things. That when we all talk about AI as an institution, we typically think about this from the perspective of policing cheating, right? It's either police cheating or how do you help students leverage the technology to do more? And I think that both those things are coming from a place of defensiveness and responsiveness as opposed to reactive, as opposed to proactive, as opposed to like, what do we believe as an institution as an institution of higher learning? How do we see the world, right? And I think that to our earlier point is what prevents us from fully seeing the value of these technologies and integrate into any real meaningful way into what we do, the acquisition and dissemination of knowledge. For people who have embraced it, we've seen so many academics have AI write their papers for them. And you go, dude, like that's not the move, right? That's not the thing, right? Or you see on the other hand where, universities are like, no AI at all, no use of AI at all. And you go, maybe that's not the thing either. And is it somewhere in the middle? Is it 30-70? I'm not quite sure. But I think that the polarity and binary nature of it all doesn't lead to anything productive.
With someone with 4 children at school, and my 3 daughters are tech savvy, and they're using generative AI in their everyday. And at first we were like, no. Again, it's that notion you're cheating. It's the cheating notion. But, when Microsoft Word gave you spell check and it corrected your spelling when you were writing a document, that was never considered cheating. Or maybe it was way back when it was first released. I don't know. Is it going to be normal? Again, like you said, what is the correct balance here? How does it, from an educational perspective, enhance the ability to educate and not diminish the academic standards that quality students have to adhere to?
The great Greek philosophers pushed against the printing press. He said it was going to make the population stupid, make it dumb. And when television came out, it said it's going to rot our brains. When the internet came out, it was like, this thing is going to make us dumb. And we're saying the same thing sort of with AI, that we always have this tendency to push against the foreign, to where they say we overvalue the future and overvalue the past and don't think very much about the present. And I say all that to say that I don't think the results are going to be as sort of terrifying as we think it will be because of the technologies. It's all going to be about our imaginations of them and how we engage with them. When I think about higher learning as an institution, I think it's our imaginations around them that actually becomes the impediment and therefore impacts our marketing, how we go to market, how we talk about the product that is education.
I've got something for you that's just popped into my head. And we spoke with a customer in Canada about it last week. We went to Seattle and spoke to all our big customers about it. And I think it really lends itself into your school of thought, Marcus. We came up with a concept called personality engineering. And what that means is a brand, when you call a call center that, say, represents AT&T, for example, you'll go through to a call center agent who'll just be a human being sitting in a call center somewhere in the United States. And as AI automates and takes over that interaction between a company's brand and the consumer, so they'll call into a call center and they may not be speaking to a human anymore. They'll be speaking to an AI chatbot, which is more than just remember the original chatbots that were like rules engines and they were just infuriating, right? Now it's obviously infused with much more intelligence. And so you will go through and now you will engage with someone and you don't even know if they're human or not, but you're engaging with them. There's then the possibility that brand, that organization can alter the personality to be more appealing to the person that they are engaging with. So, for example, I call into AT&T. It knows I'm a British 50-year-old marketing guy with 4 kids, and therefore it offers me up an agent who has the persona that matches my cultural specifications. What do you think of that as a concept? So now you can do personality, brand engineering to either give, this is my brand, this is my culture, and that call center agent will reflect that, or this call center agent will alter and be like a chameleon to the person that it's engaging with. What do you think of that notion?
I would say that was sort of the promise of the networked internet, that you're able to get things that are bespoke to you, just like ads, that the ads supposed to be tailored to the things you like.
Ultra personalization.
That's right. Yeah. So I would say that if AI does that, then great. And that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to help extend the human behavior of marketers so that we're talking to people in a much more bespoke way. And our messaging would be much more tactical or tangible and meaningful to those people.
And we put, it's just, my mind's gone into it. We spoke with Professor Scott Galloway. He was at an event that we were doing in Barcelona, and we put that notion to him. And he came back with a fantastic answer. He said, I like engaging with people who have different cultural values, opinions, accents, ethnicity, race, religion than myself. I don't want to call into something and get the same person back to me every time. I like the richness and the diversity of humanity.
I think that's a romantic sentiment. But I think from a biological perspective, we like people like us. I mean, it's called homophily, right? Self-loving. We like people who see the world the way we do, who experience things the way we do. I think that diversity, heterogeneity is the spice of life, as they say, for sure. But if we're having a problem with a company, we want someone who understands us, who makes meaning the way that we do. And so I think that, again, I think it's a romantic sentiment, but by and large, we like people like us.
Honestly, Marcus, I could carry on talking for hours, and I'm conscious of time. Obviously, we close with some fun stuff. And 12 months ago, we introduced a new concept, which was the genesis for the book I discussed at the beginning. And remember, I asked you to give us a human story that you heard that changed your life. Only something that couldn't be created by AI, that had such a profound impact on your life, whether it was a book you read, a song you heard, a stand-up comedian, something your grandparents said. And I remember you quoted back to me, it was The Alchemist, right, was a book that you'd read that had that impact. So I thought about this now in this new season. And rather than ask that question again, what is a story that you told somebody that had a profound impact on their life? And what was that story? Again, trying to get to the humanity behind, what drives us and what orients us. TGI Storytime.
So I was telling someone about my book. And they were like, oh, organizational culture, that's great. And I was like, yeah, it's about organizational culture, but what it really is about the culture of work. And they were like, say more. It was like, I lost my father in February of this year. And my father worked basically every day of his life since he was 13 years old. And even when his health had began to decline at a very, very rapid rate, he was like losing his sort of faculties, if you will. He was always like fiddling with things. He was always like working. And it said to me that it's deep in his brainstem to work. And even when he'd wake up in the middle of the night, sort of disoriented, I'd be there helping my mom. And in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m, I hear him get out of bed and I go, Dad, what are you doing? Dad, where are you going? And he's like, I gotta go to work, Marcus. It's time to go to work. I go, Dad, it's Saturday, 3 a.m, like, and you're retired. There is no work, but it's all he was wired to do. And when he passed, what was a project about organizational culture widened his aperture to be about what is it about our relationship with work that even when we are approaching our deathbed, it's still so much a part of us and a part of who we are. And it was through that that frame, through that aperture, that I wanted to approach this work. And I told the person about it. They were like, wow, I never thought about work that way, even though I think about work all the time. I was like, I know, right? It's interesting what living and the loss of life will do to you.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Marcus. That's really cool. And again, that gets me thinking, and my mind is ticking over now about a whole, but we'll have to probably save that for another episode, or we'll be talking for another 30 minutes. But I really appreciate that. And the final segment we finish with, if you recall, is our TGI to go quickfire round. TGI to go. Now, we spent an hour talking, and I know you're in the middle of finishing your manuscript or towards the end of it. So what do you prefer, talking or writing?
Oh, talking for sure. I find writing to be laborious, very, very taxing.
Share your writing process with me for someone that's been stuck in it for 12 months.
I have evolved from being the kind of writer that I only write when I'm inspired, because I find writing to be so painful, to saying you have to write, that you've got to put words on a page. So I write every day, especially now, 5 a.m. I wake up, write every day. Yeah.
And it's funny what you said there. It's when I finished some of these episodes, I had to go away and write about it. And the time when we were recording, my daughter was in rehearsal, so I was driving to the theatre, sitting in the car park in my car, and writing a recollection of these conversations. It just sparked me, and then once you get going, I couldn't stop.
That's right.
I just couldn't stop.
And that's sort of how I've always sort of waited for serendipity to befall me. And that's probably just like some lingering from my music days as a songwriter. I just wait for like the melody to hit me or a chord change to speak to me. Not like I'm gonna sit down at the piano, pick up a guitar, and I'm just gonna see where it goes. Like I never really wrote like that. But for this book, I certainly said I'm not gonna wait for serendipity to befall. I'm going to actively pursue it.
And who's the first person you share your work with? When you've concluded a chapter or a piece, who's the one person that you want to share that with?
Who I want to I end up sharing it with my editor begrudgingly, but the person I want to talk about it to is my wife. I was like, because I will say one thing, my wife will not give me puffery. She'll keep it 1,000, which I appreciate.
Let's talk about some brands. I was Christmas shopping the other night. I was in a mall, and I was looking at some brands and how they're doing. And the two brands I'd be interested just to get your preference on, Lululemon or Hollister.
Oh my goodness. I would probably say Lululemon above Hollister. I think I have like a very vivid imagery of both brands and the people who wear those brands and what those meanings are. And I see myself far more at a cocktail party with Lululemoners than I do with the Hollisters. Yeah.
The cultural viewpoint on it. Yeah.
That's right. Exactly.
Because my kids, it's all these different, and this is the thing, keeping up with all of these brands and what's in and where they resonate is spectacularly interesting. Now I'm going to go back to some comedy. I talked about comedy before, and Eddie Murphy, or the person I'm listening to a lot now, makes me laugh, Shane Gillis.
Oh, Eddie all day. Listen,
it has to be Eddie all day.
He's the GOAT. There's only one person who rivals Eddie in my mind, and that's Dave Chappelle. I mean, I think Richard Pryor, though I grew up listening to Richard, he was so he lived in a world that I just did not experience. I was just way too young to really get my head around. And by the time I had any semblance of anything, Eddie was the guy. And I think that in later years, that person would probably closest to that person is Dave Chappelle, but it's Eddie all day. He's the GOAT.
But it's in that documentary on Netflix. It shows Richard Pryor being the influence for Eddie Murphy, and then Eddie Murphy being the influence for Chappelle.
Totally.
Right.
Totally,
so it's that connection is. But Shane Gillis makes me laugh, dude. Oh my god,
he's really funny. He is, but he ain't no Eddie. Eddie is the guy.
Eddie, no. Yeah. Are you a TikTok guy or an Instagram Reels guy lately?
Oof. I am a consumer of TikTok, and I engage in Instagram. So I make content I mostly make content for Instagram. And I find myself just following my thumb on TikTok.
Okay. Now, and I saw the top 10 podcasts in the US came out last week. So would you listen to Joe Rogan or Theo Von? They were both in the top 5, or neither.
Oh boy.
And who would you listen to if it was neither of those guys?
I would say neither of them are my cup of tea, honestly. My predilection is more so, it's a podcast called Higher Learning with Van Lathan and Rachel Lynn Lindsay. And it's just the perfect balance of like intellectualism and ratchetness. Like it's a little bit of hood and it's really, really smart. Like that's my sweet spot.
And of course, The Great Indoors, of course, Marcus. I'm sure that's in your saved podcast list.
That goes without saying.
So listen, we're out of time. I've really appreciated I feel like, honestly, we could have carried on talking for a long, long, long time. It's a pleasure speaking to you, Marcus. My brain is firing up. The human conversation has sparked me off here. I think I will be going to the theatre tonight and sitting in the car park, waiting at the stage door for my daughter. And as such, I will record this episode and my thoughts in written form. But closing comments that you'd like to impart on our listeners before we sign off today?
I'm just so glad we're having this conversation, and it's why my work has naturally gravitated in this area, that work is really meaningful for us. It's not just our labor in exchange for wages. It says something about who we are and the place that we occupy in this world. And the better we understand it, I think the more we'll get out of life. I think that's pretty important. So I'm glad that we're having this discourse.
I need to remember who. I think I saw this quote in IKEA. I mean, that's an admittance in itself. But the quote was, "If you enjoy your work, then life is a pleasure."
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty sweet.
Much it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much, Marcus. We'll sign off and we'll speak to you again very soon, I hope.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. What a wonderful episode. Really great. It's always great having you on the show, and I hope we can speak again in 12 months' time. But a thoughtful, human, and deeply resonant conversation. A powerful reminder of why culture and connection still sits at the center of everything we do. So I hope you enjoyed this episode 2 in season 11. Please rate and review if you're that way inclined. You can also find all our previous episodes, there's a lot of them now, of The Great Indoors across the major podcast platforms and at amdocs.com/The Great Indoors, where we host a rich collection, a cornucopia, if you will, of additional content and assets connected to the series. We'll be back next week for episode 3, another episode of The Great Indoors, continuing this exploration of what remains human in an increasingly automated world. So I'm Matthew Roberts for Amdocs here in Toronto, and have a great day wherever you are.